Reform's Zahir Yusuf has been non-stop posting and weaponising the killing of Henry Nowak, coming out with some disgraceful statements. First, he claims that policing is institutionally anti-white. The Tories pushed DEI through our institutions and created a country in which discriminating against white people is not just legal, but encouraged. Kemi Badenoch's response to the Henry Nowak murder makes it easy to see why. I would like to know what data Yusuf has on anti-white discrimination in this country, especially on policing, whereas we have decades of documented data on the institutional sexism and racism in the Met Police. For example, black men are far more likely to be stopped and searched. The McPherson report categorically documents the racism against people of colour in the police. There was another recent report after decades showing that the racism is still there. But no such data or evidence suggests the same for white people. Yet Yusuf is going as far to say that anti-white racism is encouraged.
Nigel Farage issued a statement on camera calling for people to respond with pure, cold rage. That's incitement, isn't it?
Did you watch the body cam footage, Kathy?
I did watch the body cam footage, and I also watched Nigel
and what
Farage's
emotions
statement.
did you feel? Kathy, what emotion did you feel having watched it?
I'm asking you whether that's incitement.
With respect, I'm asking you what emotion you felt having watched the body cam
I'm conducting this interview, so I'm asking you
Henry Nowak being read his
incitement.
rights having been arrested, Kathy. Henry Nowak's the last words Henry heard on this earth were his rights having been arrested by the police, bleeding to death. And my question to you, genuinely, it's a sincere question, human to human, Kathy.
Zia,
how did you feel watching that footage?
Zia, if you could let me ask my question, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And that is why the family said they wanted to turn that into something that would not create more division. I'm asking you if Nigel Farage suggesting to people that they feel cold, pure cold rage, is that inciting people to feel anger?
Well, Kathy, you have not answered my question, which is what emotion did you feel having watched that body cam footage?
I'm interviewing you, so I would like you to ask that question. Is that incitement or not? It's simple.
Okay, well, I will tell you, having watched that footage myself, I was furious about it. I think millions of people in this country of all sorts of races and religions, based on the people who are speaking to me and sending me messages constantly, they were absolutely furious about it as well, because it was a crystal clear example of two-tier policing. And how on earth the police, upon attending the scene, took more seriously an accusation of racism than an accusation of having been stabbed. Paul Henry said repeatedly to the police, that I've been stabbed. And the police said, and this is burnt into my memory now, it's so horrifying, the police responded with, I quote, I don't think you have, mate.
We have Nigel Farage making claims that white lives matter, which is a slogan that was used by, the UK's largest white supremacist group. Are you happy with him using that phrase?
Kathy, what Nigel Farage said today was that white lives matter as much as black lives. Do you disagree with that statement?
You seem to be conducting an interview with me, but I'm trying to ask you the question.
I'm asking you whether you disagree with the statement
because
that
you're the
firstly,
politician.
I'm correcting. With respect, Kathy, I'm correcting you on this, because to leave out the second half of the sentence, I think is deliberately misrepresentative and misleading. So Nigel said that white lives matter as much as black lives. And my question to you is, do you disagree with that statement?
And my question to you is about Nigel Farage's claims of anti-white prejudice. I mean, there is overwhelming evidence, isn't there, of police racism over the decades against black minority ethnic people. You've got to go back to the Scarman report, the McPherson report, the Casey review. There are decades of racism by the police against black minority ethnic people.
The way I feel about Zahir Yusuf is he is a truly nasty piece of work, a despicable scumbag. I hate the man. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I hate him. Just an awful human being. I mean, that is one of the most shameful clips I have ever seen. Cathy Newman, I don't exactly have a lot of respect for, is doing an interview of a politician. And she's saying, look, your party leader said people should have cold rage after this, which is clearly incitement. It's incitement for people to do something about it. And instead of answering the question, he turns it back on her saying, well, I'm going to be interviewing now. And his response is to say, did you look at the footage? Did you look at the footage? Of course she's seen the footage. We've all seen it and we're all disgusted by it. And then he says, well, do you know what? This is a genuine question, human to human. That was not a genuine question. That was a lead-in, a trap for you to turn around and spout your BS. You're also lying. Nigel Farage did not say that white lives matter just as much as black lives matter. He literally said that anti-white racism or anti-white prejudice is a thing. And Kathy correctly says, well, there's documented history and evidence of anti-black racism in the police. The same isn't for white people. Now, for years, the right wing attacked Black Lives Matter by saying, well, all lives matter, not Black Lives Matter. Of course, all lives matter. But given the high level of anti-black racism, especially in the US, the point about Black Lives Matter was to point out that black lives didn't matter. And seemingly still doesn't. It was to say, guess what? Black lives matter too. And the response by simply saying, well, all lives matter, was to downplay racism. Yet now the right wing are doing the exact same thing they hated. They're saying, white lives matter. So hold on a second. Beforehand, you were saying all lives matter, and it's wrong to say black lives matter. And now you're saying, well, actually, white lives matter. What I found very interesting from the right wing and the far right is they've done the inverse liberal identity politics. Their entire political existence was to define themselves against the liberal establishment and political correctness. Oh my God, this, that. Oh, racism here, Black Lives Matter there. Right? You're doing the exact same thing. You're doing the culture wars. You're doing the identity politics, but in reverse. But at least the liberals had data and evidence on systemic racism. Now, I have big criticisms in the way in which liberals handled systemic racism because they had no class analysis and class comes into it. Of course, I have criticisms of it, but at least the liberals were right that there were, and there is, racism in society against people of colour. There is when it comes to white people. And yet, people like Zahir Yusuf is trying to weaponise it. White lives obviously matter, but it doesn't need a slogan because there's never been a time when white lives didn't matter on an institutional level. I'll tell you when white lives don't matter. That's when you're white and you're poor, or white and working class. But also, if you're black and brown working class, you're also in that category. Now, if you think Zahir couldn't seek any lower, you'd be wrong. The government has announced prostate cancer screening will be offered to black men. The government has announced all black men aged between 45 and 74 will be offered prostate cancer screening. Now, the reason for this is because 1 in 4 black men are diagnosed with prostate cancer, which is double the risk of other men. Yusuf thought it was fit to respond with this. On the day the whole political establishment claims we do not live in a two-tier society, they announced this. Notes the NHS makes no drugs available exclusively to white people. That is disgusting. Black men have a far higher risk of prostate cancer. And also, screening for prostate cancer is not exclusive for black people. So I don't know why you're saying, tell me which other service is only exclusive for white people. Because none of it exists, okay? The government just announced they're putting more investment into prostate checks for black men. It doesn't mean that you can't get checked as a white person. So not only is he lying, but once again, he's weaponizing it. Is there anything this corporate Zio puppet won't weaponize? Kevin, do you think this White Lives Matter rhetoric from Yusuf will cotton on here?
I think it already has to a degree. I think we've seen the rightward slide of British politics for some time, and this is the natural outcome of it. They're essentially using Rupert Lowe being more far right as a kind of, I'll use a kind of equivalent in the United States. If you remember a few years back when Glenn Beck was the crazy motherfucker on Fox News who'd say such outrageous, crazy shit that it made all of the actual far right serious shit seem more sensible. And that's essentially what they're doing here. He is the heat shield for the far right that allows more far rightism to seem palatable to the liberal establishment. And that's precisely what we're seeing now with the likes of, them talking about white rights and such. Firstly, I think it's very interesting that the man of the people, Zia Yusuf, was had that interview being chauffeured around in his luxury car. Very, very populist of you there. He makes some interesting points, which I think are worth analysing. Firstly, there is a two-tier policing system, but the two-tier policing system is if you're rich and you're a paedophile, if you're rich and you're friends of a paedophile, if you're rich and phenomenally corrupt, if you're rich and you take bribes in the form of free gifts to, say, like the Arsenal or something like that, if you're rich and you just steal money from the public, you get in the House of Lords. If you're rich and are financially corrupt in any number of other ways, you're absolutely fine. If you're on the dole and you work and earn £1 and you don't allow that to be, you don't tell the taxman about that, you will be absolutely fucking hammered to the point where you will get absolutely no money whatsoever in the short term and possibly kicked off universal credit in the long term as well. If you are disabled, you will be absolutely crushed. That's the two-tier system we have. If you are rich, you can get whatever the fuck you like and do whatever you like with absolute impunity. If you are poor and you even slightly break the rules, you will be over-policed. When he talks about the way in which policing is done for certain groups, I did not hear Zia Yusuf come out and decry the very strange notion in the wake of the Golders Green attack from a few weeks ago that the British government were going to put more money into the creation of a Jewish-specific branch within the Metropolitan Police Force. Literally, almost as if they are trying to make the JQ become a thing. Almost as if they are literally trying to give preferential treatment to Jewish people on the basis of their Jewishness to make it seem like they are a special group unlike everybody else. A pretty disgusting notion, really, when you think about it. And there does need to be an investigation of this, not only because someone died who needn't have died, although, as you point out, they very possibly would have anyway, but at least they'd have had a chance of survival if the police had done their job properly. But investigation needs to be done on this, not even on the basis of the racial implication of it, because, frankly, it was one dickhead who lied about a racist attack. That's not really an institutional issue. What needs to be done is not just into police training, because we keep being told that they broke their training. So clearly the training isn't really the issue, because they don't follow their fucking training. What needs to be done is the culture of stat padding within the police. They desperately need there to be an arrest on virtually every incident like this. So they don't give a fuck if you've been stabbed, you're being arrested. If you complain about it, and let's be honest, every person who has ever been arrested has complained. No one has enjoyed being arrested. No one goes entirely peacefully into handcuffs, into a tiny, horrible cell with potentially some very dangerous people inside of that cell. You are going to complain. You might be even going to make stuff up. You might be intoxicated. Who knows? And the police deal with this day to day. And so when they hear someone say something like, I've been stabbed, they're just going to say, no, you're not. You're just being a prick. And carry on. It wasn't even the police. Like, I don't want to defend the police because fuck the police. But the right-wing critique here is, oh, why aren't you making noise about this? Well, we've been saying for fucking decades that the police are shit. But the police have to try and justify themselves and the ridiculously inordinate sums of money we spend on them, considering the complete paucity of public good they actually serve, by having arrest numbers. Regardless of whether those arrests lead to anything, regardless of the fact that they don't lead to prosecutions of very serious crimes, regardless of the fact that the police are often the ones doing the fucking crimes in the first place, the police need to stat pad and arrest people and be gross toward them in order to just process the case and get it through, because that makes them look good. It makes the chief commissioner of the police force look good. And he can go to his political leaders and say, look, we've got all of these numbers. We can put it in a fancy graph. We can release a report saying how effective we are whilst the country goes to shit. Again, it's governance by briefcase robot that leads to the deaths of innocent people and the brutalisation of mostly ethnic minorities. But in this case, it was a white guy that happened to be on the rough end of it. And the police need to be investigated. And frankly, not defunded completely, but defunded very significantly, because they can't deal with things like mental health issues. They clearly don't give a fuck about people who are victims. They don't even give a fuck about people who are perpetrators, because they're often the perpetrators themselves. The police need root and branch cleaning out. And it's not because they're racist against white people. In fact, it's because they're racist against everybody else.
It's funny because for decades we were told to shut up by the right wing in our criticisms of the police. It's like the police. It's patriotic to support the police. You know, you can't attack our bobbies on the street. And now suddenly, oh well, actually they can use it for their ends. Suddenly the police are the enemy. And it's like, well, we have long pointed out the issues with policing, but we were ignored.
Well,
because
the right
obviously
wing,
they can politicize it
Yeah.
and basically start a fucking race riot.
yeah. And of course, not to make everything about Israel, but I think a good example of this is when they removed the head of the West Midlands Police Force for daring to say that allowing in pro-rape, violent, Kahanist, religious extremist football fans into Birmingham was probably not a great idea, and they hounded him out of office for it. So they're happy to attack the police when it suits them, certainly.